Glad to have you back. Now, the Nigerian Employers Consultative Association, NECA, has canvassed support for the federal government and other stakeholders, including the organized private sector, on the implementation of the expatriate reforms. Director General of NECA, Mr. Adewale Smart Oyerinde, stated this at a high-level stakeholders dialogue titled Sensitization on the New Expatriate Administration and Other Reforms, held at NECA House Auditorium in Ikeja, Lagos. Mr. Smart Oyerinde noted that the global interest in rising nationalism and the growing emphasis on homeland security have underscored the need to align Nigeria's expatriate and immigration systems with global best practices. He described the ministry's ongoing reforms as highly impactful and commendable, emphasizing that the sensitization session served as an opportunity for stakeholders to gain clarity directly from the source. Mr. Adewale Smart Oyerinde is my guest. He joins me today from our Abuja studios. DG, thank you so much for joining the program. It's good to have you in.
Thank you for having us, and good afternoon, viewers. Happy Good Friday.
Yes, happy Good Friday. DG, let's start with this expatriate issue. You know, it's this issue of expatriate reforms has been on for some time. I think it started like last year or something. That was where we started getting orders around this. Please bring us up to speed with where we are with this development.
Well, as you rightly said, globally, I think the main issue now for most countries is issue of homeland security, issue of nationalistic tendencies, issue of best practices, doing the right thing at the right time within the context of your overall economic objectives. And we feel Nigeria should not be left behind in the context of all these innovations. And we want to congratulate and also appreciate the Minister for Interior for taking the bull by the horn. You know, for the last 18 months, you will have seen the changes, you will have seen the new innovations in the context of immigration services. And the reforms is a whole gamut, not only addressing the immigration issues, but also addressing fundamental expatriate administration issues and homeland security as it were. So we were glad that the ministry opened up, were very open to engage the organized private sector. And we are working collaboratively, not only to protect the homeland, but also to make business operations, make it easier, also facilitate rapid facilitation of investment, of trade. So those are the whole context of this engagement. We are looking at the issue of a business permit. How do we make it much more easier for genuine investors? Now, genuine investors, notwithstanding what the news we've heard of recent, where the EFCC busted some buildings and picked some expatriates that actually involved on things that are not credible. Beyond that, but the issue basically is how do we facilitate investment, facilitate trade, while at the same time we are protecting the homeland security. Those are the key issues that we looked at. And we've also had a committee with the ministry that is actually looking at the whole gamut of issues that will make those processes, expatriate administration processes, easier, credible, and also easy for organized businesses to operate in. Kudos to the Ministry of Interior.
So, you know, at the time, we used to talk about local content and all of that, but many would tell you that we still need some of these expatriates to, you know, play hand in hand with us for us to build businesses and all of that across this country. So, in your own thoughts as a private sector player, a major one for that matter, what is your assessment of the role of expatriates in helping develop our businesses, grow our economy generally? What are your thoughts around that?
You know, everything rests first on the principle of mobility of labor, and globally, everywhere, labor has the liberty to a certain extent to move across geographical zones, across continents, and the issue of expatriate administration or expatriate coming to Nigeria is not peculiar to only Nigeria. You know, Nigerians too, in some countries, are expatriates. So do we need expatriates? Absolutely, we need expatriates. In fact, all developing countries, all even developed countries, they need expatriates to help within the context of skill transfer, to help within the context of national development, and also to help within the context of investment generation. Because those expats, those expatriates, in the probably the second or third instance, they are your ambassadors within the context of facilitation of investment. Because if an investor wants to come to Nigeria, beyond speaking to the investment office, beyond speaking to the Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment, then one or two people you will also speak to are expatriates that are actually investing in this country, to ask them what is the terrain, how easy is it to do business in Nigeria, how is the regulatory and legislative environment. So his comments or his testimonial will also influence whether that investor will also come into the country or not. So do we need expatriates in Nigeria? Absolutely, we need them. Do we need to regulate the inflow of expatriates? Absolutely, you need to regulate because of homeland security issues, and we have it everywhere. Do you need expatriates to help in the development of this country in the context of skill transfer, in the context of helping to develop critical sectors where there are skills gaps or competence gaps? Absolutely, you need the expatriates. But there's also the very important need to regulate so that genuine expatriates are those that you have within the context of your homeland.
Great stuff there. Now, we're back to regulatory issues again. There's been this back and forth with regards to regulatory authorities. Yes, because many times I've had private sector players come on the program to complain about efforts of or how some regulatory agencies are not supporting the ease of doing business initiative of government, because government at the federal level cannot be pushing a narrative, and business people get to some point and they begin to get some hiccups. So how is this happening? How is it playing out in 2025, where we have good Fitch ratings, we are getting positives from the central bank? I think ease of doing business should be on the front burner at this time.
Well, thank you. I laughed when you mentioned this issue of regulation and regulators, and it's becoming absurd, you know, and I'm picking my words carefully. It's becoming absurd what some regulators are turning this economy into. You know, look at the tariff war, as they call it in the US. It's all about protecting the real sector, protecting the business owners in the US. Fundamentally, look at globally, every country is trying to protect its economy, and the easiest way to protect your economy is to protect the real sector, the productive sector. Now, we really commend what is happening within the context of the economy. You know, as while Forex is still not 100 naira to $1, but there is some level of stability within the context of the rate, which gives the business owner the ability to predict what the exchange rate will be. We commend what is happening in the Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment with the recent inauguration of the Industrialization Committee to fast-track the industrialization of this country. This week, the Ministry of Labour launched a new scheme to generate over 2.5 million employment in the next 2 years. You saw what the Ministry of Interior is doing. You can see what is happening within the Ministry of Aviation. But within the context of these efforts, you still have some regulators, and you still have some legislation that, rather than promote or further the efforts of these other agencies, ministries, their activities are actually stifling the full manifestation of the efforts of those other ministries and agencies. And I'll give you an instance. While others are striving to make the private sector sustainable and competitive, and it is not about profit preservation for the private sector. It's about the growth of this economy. If you really want to grow this economy, your private sector must grow. It is a settled maxim. If you want to grow any economy, then you must grow the private sector. Now, while others are doing that, while the president has traveled to many countries, many continents, trying to attract foreign direct investment, while some other ministries, agencies, and departments are doing their bit to also contribute to that same objective, you have some other agencies still creating structures, leveraging legislation that tends to stifle organized businesses, which is quite absurd. You know, it's contradiction within the context of this ecosystem is quite disgusting, if I can use the word. Now, you have the president come up with the Presidential Committee on Fiscal and Tax Reforms that is meant to streamline the taxes and levies that we pay. And when the private sector, as you know, it has become a broken record that the private sector pays over 90 taxes, levies, and fees across board. And the president, in his wisdom, realized that growing the real sector is a way to achieve the objective of making this economy grow the way he wants it to grow. Came up with the Tariffs Committee to streamline taxes and levies and fees. But within the context of that committee, you still have agencies, agencies, regulatory agencies, still coming up with fees and levies still meant to stifle organized businesses. So rather than focus on creating regulations that will enhance the productivity of the private sector, they are now focusing too much on revenue, generating revenue at the expense of the overall economic goal of this country, which is, one of them is to promote the private sector. Because until you have a sustainable and competitive private sector, you cannot compete at the AFTA, the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. You cannot compete in any trade agreement that you sign across the globe because your private sector needs to be sustainable. So those are the real issues that we currently have. And we want to really appreciate the Minister for Industry, Trade and Investment for stepping in with the stakeholder engagement we had with one of the agencies under our ministry. We also want to thank the Minister for Interior for coming up with regulation and reform that are pro-business. We also want to appreciate the DG of PEBEC, Princess Audu, for our also intervention in trying to rein in all these regulators so that they can focus on the overall objective of this administration. The 8-point agenda of the president is still sitting there, and it's unfortunate that the activities of some of these agencies is a direct affront on the aims and objectives of this administration. It's a direct affront on the works of the Tariffs-led Committee on Fiscal and Tax Reforms. It's a direct affront on the organized private sector, and it's a direct affront on this administration's attempt to attract foreign direct investment, which is quite unfortunate.
Great stuff. Now, before I let you go now, let's look at this tariff war and its implications. There's been back and forth with regards to this, and the impact is already telling on markets, global markets, supply disruptions, and this is what everyone is talking about. We don't know where it will take them at. Some even predict global recession. Some say, no, there could be a meltdown. Everyone is just coming up with different comments now. What do you make of this in your own thoughts? And what are the direct, or what are your expected impact, or what do you think what does it mean for Africa's most populous nation?
You know, I will want to align, we really want to align with the comment by the Director General of the World Trade Organization, our own very respectable Dr. Okonjo-Iweala, that irrespective of the brouhaha concerning the tariff, there are opportunities inherent in all these issues. President Trump has decided to protect his country, protect the businesses within America, and also protect the interest of American economy. Now, whether that interest will be protected, is being protected in the short term, will it be protected in the medium and long term, it is left for all to see. But the fundamental issue is this. He has made a decision to protect the interests, supposedly to protect the interests of America. And other countries have also responded within the context of protecting the interests of their own country. One of the positive outcomes will be this. Everybody will now have to explore alternative markets. If there are no alternative markets, all countries we now have to create new markets. All countries we now have to create alignments and realign within the context of trade. And as you do that, you also need your business, your real sector, and even your service sector. You need them to be very productive, very sustainable, very competitive. If not, you run the risk of being the victim, the maximum victim within the context of this trade war, as some have called it. And that rolls back, that feeds back within the context of what we have said. That, look, we need to take a second look, and the government needs to rein in all these regulators that have taken upon themselves or that are leveraging on regulation, on legislation to implement policies, programs that are anti-business. We need to rein them in, and rein them in as quickly as possible, so that we don't wake up tomorrow and realize that another 100 businesses have closed shop. We don't wake up tomorrow and realize that the number of the unemployed youth in this country have doubled through the activities and actions of these regulators. And unfortunately, Tolu, when we are talking about unemployment, sorry I drag unemployment to this conversation. When we are talking about unemployment rate, many of us don't attach the activities of this regulator as one of the causes that is feeding unemployment. When a business closes down or relocates from this country, people don't create the nexus between the activities of these regulators and a business shutting down. And it's time we start creating that nexus so that Nigerians and government can see the nexus between the works, the activities of some regulators and the current quagmire that we find ourselves. Kudos to many regulators, I must confess, to many regulators that are doing the right thing, that are supporting organized businesses, that are working within the context of their risk index, their objectives. Kudos to those many agencies and their leadership, and we commend them for the work they are doing. But for those that are still, whose activities are still creating challenges and contradicting everything that this administration is proposed to do, we hope they will retrace their steps and align with the current trend of promoting the private sector, promoting the national development, as it were.
That's our time today. Mr. Adewale Smart Oyinrinde is the Director General, Nigerian Employers Consultative Association. Thank you so very much. We appreciate your time.
Thank you for having us once again.
Happy Good Friday to you.